Welcome to We Got Goals, a podcast by asweatlife.com on which we talk to high achievers about their goals. I'm Kristen Guile. I am the Chief Content Officer of A Sweat Life, and today we are talking to Courtney Phillips. Courtney is the co-founder of Gumbo Media, which is a storytelling platform and a content engine that expands the narrative of Black life. And then she is also the co-founder of Gumbo Fit, which is powered by Nike Running, and it's a grassroots running organization that's cultivating a unique community and prioritizing the health and wellness goals of Black and Brown fitness enthusiasts across Chicago, particularly on the South and the West Side communities. Hi, Courtney. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. I think I first met you last year at Sweatworking Week when you participated in our race and wellness finale panel with Colin Hudson and Kayla, I think it was. But I think it's been that long since I've seen you, so it's nice to see your face through my screen.
Yeah, I think it's been almost like, I don't know, a full year?
Yeah.
So, and that panel was so great. And honestly, A Sweat Life really did such a good job of just like, because we all had to follow the guidelines, but then you guys were able to do something very large scale and also like meet all the guidelines, made sure everyone had so much space. And like, it felt, I don't know, like it was just like, oh my gosh, I forgot how much I miss the events, so you guys really do a fantastic job.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it was a crazy week. But Sweatworking Week last year was just like such a nice oasis of semi-normalcy, that it was just so exciting to like see people. And even if you weren't really like touching them, but like you could feel the good energy, which is just hard to do in a Zoom. And I'm sure it seems like you also sort of thrive off in-person connections with all the organizing that you do. So I'm sure that you are also excited about this summer and how things have started to change for the better.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I'll get into a lot of the community gathering that we've been doing over the past year, including in 2020. But like, yeah, if anything, it really showed us like how we can still do what we do and still gather folks and also give them like an opportunity to just get out of the house, move their bodies. And that's always been the goal, right? Like we just want people to move their bodies, but then it just became a whole new goal and achievement when you could do it also during like a pandemic.
Well, I gave sort of a brief introduction to you, but I think there are a lot of gaps that you can probably fill in. So I would love to hear you sort of tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, and how you got to be where you are today and maybe what you're working on right now. And then we'll get into the rest of it from there.
Yeah. So yes, I'm Courtney Phillips. I'm the co-founder of Gumbo Media. My co-founder is my fiance. So that's really amazing to just be able to work with him and to also just build a life together and centered around, telling Black stories, Black and Brown stories, expanding the narrative of Black life through content curation, content opportunities, and community. And so I think that ultimately, we've switched our business a little bit, especially during the pandemic, where we were beforehand a lot very like event heavy. And then the pandemic happened and we like kind of threw ourselves even more so than we had before into business services. And so we have a very large team of creatives that we can pull from to kind of give our clients like kind of this like a la carte, like, opportunity to like work with creatives that can like fit their needs. And so everything from what we call like seed, root, and then tree companies, like, so from everything from SPDCs to large, well-known household name type of companies. And like, we've grown so much. And I would say that a lot of people don't really know about that a whole lot. And obviously we're here to talk about sport. But that is really like the underlying reason why I'm able to do what I can do with Gumbo Fit. And Gumbo Fit branched out of that with, again, going back to the idea of expanding the narrative of Black life. My thought and, my team's thought were just kind of like, okay, well, what does that look like in the context of fitness? And so from there, I was like, oh, it'd be funny if it was like Gumbo Fit, like, and so it was kind of like silly at first, to be honest. And then it like turned into this like very legitimate thing. And it was like, and we're like powered by Nike Running. We're running marathons. I ran my first marathon. We're now training a cohort of individuals running, where more than half of them are running their first marathon as well. Like, it's wild. And our community has literally grown from like me and then like 4 other people to like yesterday at our track meet or track workout, we had accounted 46 people. And I'm just like, yeah.
That's amazing. Sorry. Sometimes I like make faces in the camera and then I realize that we're on a podcast and people can't hear my face. So
right.
Every now and then I have to do a reset and verbalize. That's amazing. 46 people coming out for a track workout is a lot of people, especially when it seems like y'all run the wide range from very beginner to more experienced runners. And that, I think that says something about the community you've created and like a welcoming atmosphere that is not intimidating at all for people to walk into.
Yeah. I will say that so I recently was traveling and I was in New York and I was like, oh, let me go and visit one of the run clubs out there. And because I really wanted the experience of showing up to a run club where no one knew me, because like I could do that in Chicago, but now that people know Gumbo Fit, like if I show up, even though I'm like new, they're still going to be like, oh, hey, Courtney, or it's like, oh, Gumbo Fit. Because it asked me what I do, I'm going to tell them. And so like that was my opportunity while traveling to just be like unknown and to have that experience as a runner, finding a community, building up the courage to go. And I realized like it's going to be intimidating no matter what, because you're putting yourself out there. So yes, like we try to make it as like as non-intimidating as possible. But I think that either way it is, just slightly, but it's just like once you get here, once you come out, because it's like coming out is like the first, like that's the hardest part, but once you get there, then it's going to be like, hey, thanks for coming, glad you're joining us, so like we really like, even like me and my co-captains, like we all make it our priority to make sure that we identify who's new and let them know that they are welcomed in our space. So yeah.
And we do the same thing at our events, where Gina really forces everybody to make a friend before the event starts. She'll say, raise your hand if you're new. And then she'll give everyone like an icebreaker question and say, you're here to meet a friend, go say hi to somebody you don't know. And just as I've grown older, like the power of like having someone else like help facilitate that is just so strong, because it can be really scary to like go up to someone on your own and say hello. But once it's just a part of the event, it's a part of the atmosphere and the culture, then it becomes a lot more fun and a lot less nerve-wracking.
Exactly.
Well, let's back up a little bit, because I know we do have a lot to talk about with Gumbo Fit, but I do want to hear about Gumbo Media as well. So what I'm curious about is some of the stories that you guys have told and what has stayed with you. Like, what do you think have been some of the most impactful stories that you've been able to share with your creators?
With Gumbo Fit, I would
Gumbo Media.
Yeah, so with Gumbo Media, we just recently had what we call our potluck. Everything's related to food. They pick you know what I mean? It's not just me and Matt, it's like our whole team. Where we gather all of our creatives, our project managers, Matt and I jump on and we just kind of do like a show and tell. We tell everybody like what projects we're working on, because like if you don't work with someone and you don't see them, when you see them, you don't know what they're working on. So it's like, it's a good time to like really have that like community gathering as a team, which is obviously a running thread throughout everything that between Gumbo Media and Gumbo Fit. But like recently, one of our creatives was just like, I have come from a lot of work environments that like I did not feel safe in, I did not feel seen in, and it's just like we've really worked so hard to cultivate space for the people that we work with to feel like they belong, and that they're seen and valued. And so it just was like, and so we're consistently hearing that come back to us. And I think that it's like, that's something that like Matthew, my partner, and I, my co-founder and I are really proud of. And I think about the fact that, that's exactly what Gumbo Fit is built on as well, because like, I said, like, it's me, but then it's co-captains as well. And so it's me and literally 5 other co-captains, because I know that I could not have done this by myself. As a runner, as an athlete, I mean, if you're familiar with the Bowerman concept of like Nike Bowerman of like, if you have a body, you are an athlete, which is like, yeah. But it's like, if you're new to a sport, you still feel a little awkward and you might not feel as confident. So like, that's definitely was me when I started Gumbo Fit, because like I had never really ran with another run club, wasn't really familiar with like much of anything in the running world. But then I was like, I want to run a marathon, and I know how to gather community. So, like that's my strong suit, is like gathering community and like making sure everyone feels welcomed. And so having my co-captains and making sure that they feel like, well, actually not even making sure that they feel like, just actually giving them like their own sense of leadership, their own sense of ownership of like what we're building together, and just making it, not so like, hierarchical, like, or just like, it's not a hierarchy. It's very much like either flat or like cyclical. I always say it always comes back to the community anyway. So like, that's really kind of the model that we try to facilitate in both sides of our business. And so, but then I would say, and I'm not trying to be super long-winded, but like, even with the runner,
you can do whatever you want.
Even with the runners of like Gumbo Fit, I would say that many of like, it's same with like how the creatives have said like, this space is the space I want to work in. Like a lot of the runners who are a part of our community are like, this is the community that I want to run in and like move my body in. I feel like people around me really care about my health and wellness. And like, that is like, that's all that really matters to me. Like, I want to make sure that people want to come out next time. I've had runners who are like, they hit us up in DMs and they're like, can I come out? And I'm like, yes. Or like, but I don't really run. I'm like, it's okay. You can walk. Like, as long as you can do something within like an hour, like on Saturday mornings, I'm always like, just try to wrap it up in an hour, whatever you're going to do, just move your body. If you don't want, you like, yes, we're a run club, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can get to running later. The point is serious.
Like, it's just moving.
Exactly. And so, I just have heard, like, I think with our runners and like just the fact that they continue to come out every week, I think that in of itself just shows that what we're doing is working, and it's just like and is growing for a reason. And I think that even with a sweat life, it's just like, you could say the same thing.
Thank you.
Before we take a break for some Zen with Sunday Scaries, we want to remind you how obsessed we are with their delicious and super effective CBD infused gummies, packed with vitamins D3 and B12. And you can enjoy 20% off on their website with code LIFE20. So you can enter Max Relax Mode. That's LIFE20. Now let's take a pause with some easy box breathing. First, exhale all your air and prepare to breathe in counts of 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. There. That's not so scary. Now go take on the day.
Well, speaking of a sweat life, let's get into the first question that we ask everyone who comes on our podcast. So, Courtney, will you tell us about a big goal that you've set in the past, why it was important to you, and what you did to get there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I should just talk about the marathon, because like for me, running a marathon has always been a big goal for me. Before I even moved to Chicago, which was almost 6 years now. So I've been here for a while. It's definitely home for me. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota originally. Always been interested in fitness, always did like sports growing up really, but then like I always did like softball, or like I'm from Minnesota, so like we did cross country skiing and like, you know, like, yeah. And so, and volleyball. So I never really did any sport that forced me to run a whole lot. I mean, I guess cross country skiing is running on skis, but I only did that for like one season or so. Enjoyed it, but it was a short stint of time. And so, running a marathon was important to me because I always thought that I wasn't a good runner or that I couldn't run. And so, yeah. And I think that that's kind of the case for a lot of people who kind of have that same background relationship with running. Mm-hmm. And so I just almost wanted to just see if I could just do it, because for some reason, something in my head kept telling me that I couldn't. So I just kind of wanted to prove myself wrong. Mm-hmm. And so the community aspect of Gumbo Fit, I was like, I knew part of the reason why Gumbo Fit even exists is like, because selfishly, I wanted to run a marathon, but I also knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself.
So you tricked a lot of people into doing it with you.
Exactly. And so, you know, and then also just attracted a lot of people who have done it already. And then like, I learned so much from them, and then like, was like, you should be a captain because you know more about this than I do. And like, I know I'm really good at the administrative stuff, community gathering. I can, you know, I'll do social media, but like, you guys are the experts.
Yeah. They know what they're talking about when it comes to like when to replace your running shoes and how to taper and that kind of stuff. Exactly. So how did that first marathon go?
Oh, it went really well. I mean, so I'm gonna be honest, it took me 4 hours and 45 minutes to finish.
That's great.
I've been told that that's good for a first time marathon. I have now a goal to qualify for Boston. I feel like the more I say it, the more it'll force me to actually do it. Cause like I was talking to Coach Robin and Nike run coach, Edge, like I said before. And literally last night, I literally mentioned it to her, and she's like, yeah, I mean, like, I feel like that's pretty normal. You know, you like your first marathon, you just like, you take, you know, like people take their time. Also, like, she's like, that's a good time for your first marathon. She's like, I literally work with someone who had like a similar first marathon time. And now she runs like 3:11. 3 hours, 11 minutes.
Just
yeah. So like, Right. And honestly, though, in 2019, one of my captains, Candace James, she had a baby who I think her baby's 9 months now. Her name's Zuri. Like, shout out Zuri. I love her so much. And Candace, she's a fit mom. Love her. That marathon in 2019, she cut an hour off of her marathon.
Yeah.
And that's crazy wild.
Yeah.
So the possibilities of cutting down your time and like, I would just say that like, just be honest and like honor that first marathon and know that you can do better. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I think it's important too, that you end your first marathon feeling good. Like that when I did my first one, and I remember crossing the finish line being like, okay, I can do that again. And I know that sounds inconceivable for a lot of people, but it sounds like you were kind of in the same boat where like, you ran smartly and like felt good throughout the day. And so you didn't end it, you know, wishing you had never spent those 4 hours and 45 minutes running the streets.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, you're completely right. I really wanted to enjoy this first marathon. I brought my AirPods with me and I put them in like my back pocket, but I never took them out once because I didn't need them. Like, because there's just so much going on, whether it be actually like people playing music, people cheering you on, people trying to hand you food, water, whatever. Like it's so much fun. And the vibes change throughout the entire course. So I was just like, oh, this is an event. It's a celebration. I feel like it is just something where for me too, during training, I've always been like super cautious about like, I would rather undertrain than overtrain, which I've actually found out is just like, that is like, you never want to overtrain and waste all your energy. You want to be able to use that athleticism for your actual race day versus, you know, so it is okay to kind of like be a little conservative with yourself because one, you don't want to get hurt. You want to make sure that you're recovering well. And then you also want to make sure that like, once you get to the actual race day, whether it be a marathon, even or half, if you want to get into ultras, whatever, it's like that you can perform, but also enjoy yourself and not just feel completely depleted. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you ran your first marathon. You are now training, is it for Chicago this fall?
I'm not, because I'm facilitating an entire cohort and just making sure that they're getting across the finish line. Because, during this time, like I actually have gotten certified as a Nike road, not a Nike, but like a road running coach. So with RRCA, which is like, for me, that's a big accomplishment, going from not knowing much to like knowing by experiencing, and then actually learning, and doing a whole course on it, and just like really expanding my knowledge. So now I actually feel like I can talk about running a little bit more. So I'm just using this opportunity to facilitate, learn more, and then also to identify what I want to do, because like kind of been interested in tries, kind of been interested in ultra marathons. And so I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my question then. What has changed in how you approach Gumbo Fit and the programming in the community since your first marathon and from now? How has that sort of evolved, your mindset and how you approach being a leader in this setting?
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely less about me. I would say, because again, like I started it with just like thinking I want to run a marathon and I want community around me, but I also kind of want to create. But then like, I always know, I say selfishly, but I also know in the back of my mind, I'm always like, oh, I know it's going to be great, because I was doing this already with Gumbo Media, but then I was gathering community in other ways. So it's like, at the end of the day, I know everyone is going to benefit from it. But I think that I had to be invested first in it for it to work. Yeah. And so that was me being invested, because I had a personal goal that I wanted to meet. Now that we've gotten grown our community, and now that we are facilitating a 20-week training program with an entire cohort, like I would say the focus is still the same, because it's similar, because it's still focused on like community. It's just now like such a broader group of folks. I don't even know how to explain. Yeah. And I would say that for me, I'm also thinking about like my personal focus is more centered around like, what does it mean for a Black woman, myself, to be in the running community, like at large, because running is predominantly a white sport for the most part. Like, what does it mean for me to be here, to take up space, to lead a community? What does it mean for me to curate races? Because we curated 6 races in the span of 9 months in partnership with Edge. So it's like, and I've never met any other Black women who are putting on races around me. So I'm very much like, so it's like, I'm also just thinking about what is the impact, how can I continue to live within this running space, but then like kind of kick down some doors, and like kind of figure out like, what can I do? Because I'm like, yes, I can lead a run club. We're doing it. It's going really great. I love what we're doing, but I'm thinking on a personal level again, because I always say that like, if I'm interested in it, it's like, and it ends up helping others as well. Right. Cause I want to be invested in it. So I'm also just thinking, okay, so what can I do to expand, and also be, kind of like, just like an example for others to do these things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And, it's clear that a lot of other people believe in you too, in your power of leadership in this space. You mentioned Coach Robin of Edge Athlete Lounge and working with her to curate races, and Gumbo Fit is powered by Nike Running, which I'm sure lends a lot of support and I don't know if publicity is the right word, but maybe just awareness of what you're doing and how you're doing it and where you're doing it. So I think it's clear that there's like a want for women like you to be leaders in this space, and a need for, new voices, Black voices, brown voices, people who we haven't traditionally looked to be leaders in wellness, stepping up and encouraging more people to come join the community.
Yeah. And like, you're right. Cause it's just like, I think that there's a booming interest. I think Black and brown folks have been leading in wellness for a while, like in their own ways. But I would just say that running specifically is different. Like it can be such an, I kind of consider it a little bit of an extreme sport in some ways, just because it's, I guess everyone can do it. But then when you start thinking about like training for really intense things like tris and ultras, then it's like, it becomes even more, running's already kind of niche. And then you add extreme and then it becomes even more niche. And so it's like, and then also diversity continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so that's kind of where I'm like, I think that I know in my own community, a lot of Black and brown leaders in fitness who, you know, they do training. There's a lot, I know plenty of yogis, I know a lot of like, you know, and I think that that's really amazing. And so I'm thinking about now, like, okay, I feel like a lot of those areas are taken care of in a lot of ways, or there's already trailblazers going, like they're already there. They don't need me. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, you know, like but I'm thinking, okay, so, but in running, I still see a lot of gaps. And I think that's kind of like why I try to be very specific about running, because it's like, it's all health and wellness, but I want people to know that I care about running.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's something that it's just a thing, it's my tool for like changing lives and changing and moving, you know, community.
Yeah. That it's interesting too, because, you know, you're totally correct in that you say the more niche you get within running, you know, the longer distances, the more training that's required, the wider and richer I think it gets. But at face value, running is one of the most accessible forms of fitness you can do. You know, you need a pair of tennis shoes and a street, and that's essentially it. So that gap is kind of interesting to me, and how we can like communicate that accessibility without the intimidation, and like showing people like, okay, you can run a marathon if you want to, but if you just want to get out and jog around the block with your friends a few times, that's also totally cool.
Yeah. And I think so. I think I've had this conversation with a lot of people, including like my captains, about just the accessibility of running, because I think at first it like the thought is just put on some shoes and go running. But then it's like, but then when you think about, okay, do you have shoes? Do you feel like you're safe to run around your block? Like, cause not everybody lives on a block where just going outside and running around their block is like, okay. So like, I think running seems to be super accessible, but then when you have a situation where, you can run, but then it's like, not everyone has access to the knowledge, because for me, growing up, no one suggested that I run. I was told, oh, you'd be great for basketball. You'd be great for volleyball.
Courtney's tall, for the listeners at home. Courtney.
Right. I'm 5'9". Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, no one came up to me and was like, why don't you run? You know, like, no, like not even like my parent. I don't have anyone in my family who ran. Yeah. Not even leisurely. Yeah. So like, I think that accessibility of even just like having examples of individuals in your family or friend groups that like run, like, I think that it's like, it's actually not as accessible as we want to make it seem. Even when you think about the commercialization of jogging, happened in Portland, right? Bowerman and all these, you know, like a lot of this stuff is just like, and it was targeted towards white middle-class people to get outside because they had the leisure and time in their day to go running, versus like Black folks, it's just like, we got to pay our bills. No one has time to go outside and run. Although, yes, historically, Black and brown people have been running, but I would say the commercialization of running, it just continues to be white and actually not as accessible to the Black and brown communities as I think we want to make it seem, because it is more than just putting on shoes.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared all of that. Now that I think about it too, when you're talking about like leisure time to run, you know, it all depends on what kind of job you have. And, you know, when you're working, when you're off work, maybe you get off work at 6 a.m. and that's not a great time to run, or you get off late at night. There are a lot of hidden barriers that I have not had to deal with, that I'm going to be thinking about now for a while. So thank you for sharing all of those. Let's get into the second part of our question that we ask everyone who comes on this show. Tell us about a big goal you're working towards for the future, why it's important to you, and what you're doing to get after it right now.
Yeah, I mean, for the future, I would say a lot of things that, I mean, I'm pretty kind of what I've mentioned in the past, like just trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm kind of like playing with the idea of like writing about running.
Mm.
Um, and I, again, playing with the idea, we'll see where that goes. But I think that that's again, like going back to the thought of like, where can I kind of break down some doors and like kind of trailblaze a little bit. And I don't want to make it sound like that is just me, because I know that there's other people of color in this space of running, and I don't want to discount their efforts. But I just, even with them, even being in this running kind of effort with them, there's still space, not only for everyone that's here, but a lot of other people that might be coming, in the future. So I think that the more that we can do, even in our siloed spaces or even as a collective, I'm just like, that's kind of where I see myself. I continue to see myself within fitness. I continue to see myself within running. I do see me training for something at some point. I just got to figure out what I'm passionate about. Again, I literally had this conversation with Coach Robin last night, and she's just like, if it doesn't excite you, then you're not going to want to get out and run for it. So it's like, you need to figure out what you want to do, whether it be a 5K, your fastest 5K, or a marathon, or like, there's fun races that you can do. There's cross state races that you can do, team races that you can do. So it's like, I think for me in my future, I think it's like, fitness is definitely in my future. I'll also say Gumbo Media continuing to grow and like just doing amazing things in like in our work within business development and just like our services team. I just like continue to see that growing and continuing to just grow and like facilitate a space for creatives to be supported and taken care of. So yeah, I think that that's kind of where I kind of like know generally that I'm like, I know I love everything that I'm doing. I just want to keep doing it. And then also just explore new opportunities within that.
What does that process look like for you when you have a bunch of ideas of things that you want to do or could be doing, but you want to narrow it down to something? Like how will you go about deciding whether it's another 5K or a cross state race or whatever is next? How do you narrow that down?
That's a good question. I think right now it's kind of like what's on my mind the most, like what's the one thing? Because I feel like there's that, I don't know if it's a saying that everyone knows or just a thing where it's just like, if it's something that you want to buy, like I try to move very intuitively, and I'm trying to continue with that effort and actually like just sharpen that tool even more of just like listening to my intuition and just like, if I'm still thinking about it, and if that's the thing that like makes me like, I don't know, tingle inside or gives me goosebumps, like that's clearly something that I feel called to do. So like, that's usually the thing where I'm just like, all right, this is what I need to make time for. And then I also just like, I think it's important to not over commit oneself. Which I'm still working on. I'm not trying to sit here on a pedestal about none of this. I'm just saying like, this is like some of the things that I'm trying to practice, it's like, this is in my practice of just like not overcommitting myself, moving forward with things and people that I'm inspired by, I would say. Like, I think like even just working with individuals, bringing people onto our team, or just like right now, like, yeah, I think it's all about like, do I feel comfortable with you? Do I feel like there's a connection of like, a vibrational connection, honestly. And so like, so yeah, like, I think that that's really what focuses me. And then, for a little bit more of a grounded answer, I also have my fiance and like talking to him is amazing. I'll also say therapy has really helped me hone in on the things that like I need to be focused on. And I suggest therapy to everybody because I think that it's helped make my life more clear in many ways.
Yeah. Even if you're not in a crisis situation, I think one thing that our team has learned this past year too is that therapy is just a helpful toolkit to have in your back pocket. In some sessions, I'm literally just talking to my therapist about everything that's good in my life. In other sessions, we do a lot more work. So It's there at all times. And I love what you said about like just finding people who inspire you and who you vibe with really well, because, you know, I don't know if you've made this connection, but I'm sure that's what you have been to the members of the Gumbo Fit community, who have stuck with your running and your programming thus far. I'm sure they feel that same connection to you. And I think hard things are a lot easier when you are doing them with people that you think are just slightly better and slightly cooler than you.
Amazing. Thank you. That's amazing. That's a really great compliment.
I want to call back one more thing before we get into some end matter for the show. You said that you didn't want to take away from other Black and brown fitness and running organizers specifically because they were doing great things. Are there any that you want to shout out specifically that our audience should know about?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I probably should. I need to like create a list so that I can actually just like be accountable and actually name everyone. So if you're listening to this and I don't say your name, sorry. But I would say one thing I would say like close to home is 7 on Sundays. They are a run club in Chicago that actually started like literally just a couple months, like around the exact same time that Gumbo Fit started, which is I think really amazing. And I kind of like, I don't know why it took me so long to realize this, but like I literally realized this like recently. So, and Ian, who is one of the leaders of it, along with Aaron, he and I have a podcast together now called the Runners Club Podcast. So
nice.
I'm gonna shout that out real quick. It's really great. Just started.
We'll link to it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yes, please. So, you know, there's that. And then, so 7 on Sundays, there's also like a lot of like older, and I don't say that like negatively, but like just run clubs that have been around for a while, like, Black Chicago Runners, Men Run These Streets. There's a few that are popping up now, like, around the city. I think that I think specifically, and I don't want to take credit for everything, but like, I think Gumbo Fit, because like you're saying, Nike has definitely shown a spotlight on us, and then also just like our efforts. And I think that it has really inspired others to kind of like start their own communities, which I love, because I always say that like, I don't want to be responsible to gather all of the community. I think everyone, you know, we need to have different vibes too. Like Blackness is so diverse, everything from what's centrally known to what's on the fringes. It's like there needs to be diversity in running to reflect us, you know, like, so I really encourage anyone to just start a run club or even just a small fitness group with their friends. But and then I think it's Diversity Run, which I technically haven't been introduced to them directly, but they really popped off last year during the uprising, and they've blown up quite a bit. So I would definitely check them out. I would also just say, like, if you're in any city across the United States and you're curious about run clubs or even starting a run club, it's like, I would definitely suggest like joining one of the run clubs in your city. And I would just say, like, if you go to one run club's Instagram, even like Gumbo Fit, like I try my best to, like, whenever I come across a new run club, I literally follow them, because if anyone comes to our Instagram and goes to who we follow, they can literally scroll down and see a whole bunch of like run clubs that they can pick from. So, I mean, I'm saying everything.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, and we all kind of follow each other. Like, I think if anything, we all see each other, and it's like, yeah, I want my feed to be of other people running. Yeah. So yeah, I would say like always kind of use that as a tool. And also, like, you know, I encourage everyone to just do even just a quick Google search of like run clubs in New York. Like, I literally, again, I was there not too long ago. I joined We Run Uptown. They're also sponsored by Nike. I joined them, and it was fantastic. And it literally was the first time that I've ran in the city, in the streets of New York. It was the first time that I like saw certain areas of the city. Yeah. And I was just like, and this is how a really good way of like seeing a city from a local's point of view. So I think that that's always great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a really good place to start. Yeah. Because I would say like, start where the run clubs are at.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do some research so that we can link to all of those in our blog post and in our show notes. Courtney, you've been an awesome guest. It is time to wrap this up. But before we go, I want to give you your moment of self-promotion. We would love to know where we can find Gumbo Fit, Gumbo Media, everything that you're working on. Where is the easiest place for us to find you on the internet so we can stay up to date?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Courtney and Phillips. The N is my middle name, Nicole. So it's just one word, Courtney and Phillips. And then you can find Gumbo Media, just like that. The food Gumbo Media, one word, Gumbo Fit, one word, all on Instagram. Maybe I think we might have our Instagram up for the Runners Club podcast up soon, but that's another thing to look out for because we need somewhere to put all the content. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of it. And then, obviously there's so many links in bio, and then I'll just, last but not least, just shout out the fact that like Gumbo Fit, yes, we're centered around the Black community, brown community, but like we're open to the public. Like our runs on Saturdays, you can pop up to our track workout, you can pop up to just show up. The link is in our bio with like the geo link where you can actually find us, so like it's super easy to find us. If you have any questions, DM us. But yeah, please come through.
All right. Well, I will have to take you up on that soon as I try to get back into running after a long winter off. But Courtney, thank you so much for being on We Got Goals today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to everyone from our audience for listening. Thank you to Ryan Deffett for editing the audio. Thanks to Ryan Barriuga for editing the video. And we will see you all on the internet for another episode of We Got Goals next week.